As we saw with London, our shift from walking to omnibus to train and then to personal automobile pushed the city boundaries well beyond their human scale sizes. As cities consumed more and more land, uses that were traditionally mixed, like commercial, office, and residential, began to separate from one another. Where the separation of land uses around the time of the Industrial Revolution focused on moving people away from unhealthy, polluting factories, the separation being codified by local ordinances across the globe in the 20th century started to trend towards extreme separation. Clusters of homes were pushed farther out into farmland. Commercial developments grouped together to service people from all over the region, and non-commercial employment was sometimes isolated into clusters called an office park. This new and relatively empty landscape took on a pattern that is likely familiar to many today. Cities pushed out to suburbs, fringes, and exurbs. More and more land was consumed by low-density single-family residential units that were highly car-dependent. This type of development catered to a car-centric lifestyle. Streets became much wider, often at the expense of sidewalks. Houses circled cul-de-sacs that connected to hierarchical road networks, and front porches gave way to garage doors. Commercial development changed too. Cities went from main street markets to big box shopping centers surrounded by large parking lots. Rather than walking a few blocks to pick up groceries or look through clothing racks, shoppers drove to regional malls and shopping centers often located far away from their neighborhoods and out of range of public transportation. The move away from traditional mixed-use neighborhoods with gridded networks containing small blocks had strong impacts on accessibility for anything but the car. Discontinuous street networks buffeted by high-speed roads limit the distance individuals can travel without a car and significantly reduce the things they can access within a reasonable walking distance. As this graphic from the Sightline Institute shows, walk access within a grid pattern allows pedestrians to reach many more opportunities within a 1-mile walk compared to a cul-de-sac type development. This development pattern can be the difference between residents getting around by active travel modes and public transportation or being dependent on personal automobiles. While this type of discontinuous network and development is commonly found around the U.S. suburbs, parts of Auckland have also followed similar patterns. For example, over the past few decades, employment growth outside the Auckland CBD has grown at a faster rate than employment within the CBD. While employment is dense within the CBD, it only represents 13% of the region's total employment. There has been ever-growing pressure to push housing and commercial uses away from the concentrated CBD. Parking structures have replaced single-story buildings while Auckland's versatile lands were converted from agriculture to single-family housing.
Our most cosmopolitan city, lying between two beautiful harbors, is built on a ring of old volcanoes. But the explosive activity there today is not volcanic. 1 New Zealander in every 5 lives in metropolitan Auckland. 10,000 new citizens arrive every 12 months. In 5 years' time, it's estimated that Auckland will be the home of 500,000 people. Broad, shady avenues laid out 120 years ago before motor cars were thought of pour the traffic down into the valley, which is Queen Street, the heart of the city. The city canyon climbing up from the sea was once all noise and congestion. But the passing of the trams has left clear streets where traffic flow can be regulated smoothly. The Barnes Dance, named after the man who first introduced it, gives pedestrians a wonderful feeling of freedom for a few minutes and saves everybody's time at intersections. Traffic's increasing in leaps and bounds as Auckland grows, and the streets have to be well organized to keep 100,000 vehicles moving. Somewhere has to be found, too, for them to stop when they want to. Off-street parking takes care of many cars. Planning transport and communications for the future is very necessary, for it's expected that a city the size of Wellington or Christchurch will be added to Auckland within the next 10 years. The Railways Department is rushing ahead the largest marshalling yards in New Zealand. 10 miles of track are being laid, which will soon be handling well over 2 million tonnes of goods a year. Stations and goods sheds are trying to keep up as the 27-mile industrial area expands like a bomb blast. Pleasure craft now have the best facilities in the Southern Hemisphere in a snug anchorage by the harbour bridge. These 5,500 tonnes of steel have turned out to be a greater success than anybody dreamed. The 3 millionth vehicle drove over the bridge only 8 months after opening day, and already they're considering reducing the half-crown toll. Traffic travelling at 40 miles an hour is controlled by microwave and TV cameras. It flows over the 3 miles of bridge and approaches in a steady stream. To a city bursting at the seams, this motorway in the sky is like an opening door. It's away from the city where the residential frontiers are thrusting out to all points of the compass that the really spectacular changes are taking place. Some of these suburbs, like Takapuna, have a population of over 20,000 and are cities in their own right. The shopping areas are new, up-to-date, convenient. Suburbs complete with services, transport, communications, industries and schools. The road gangs move further and further into the country. Auckland's fortunate in having room to grow. A curb in a paddock's almost a symbol of what is happening everywhere. And following the roads come the houses. New suburbs are being built from scratch. A town the size of Whangarei goes up in Auckland every 12 months. In 1959, more houses were built than in Wellington, the Hutt, Dunedin and Christchurch combined. Do drop in for a cup of tea this afternoon. My new house is being delivered today. The armies of workmen advance. Here at Glen Innes, they're putting up 73 shops, a hotel, banks, a community centre. In 3 years, another 16,000 people will have moved in. North, south, west, east. You become infected with the excitement of seeing vigorous growth everywhere you look. Beyond the Tamaki, there will soon be another 4,600 house units, 40 acres of industry, 12 schools, commercial and shopping areas. Shortly, another 20,000 Aucklanders will make their homes in a new suburb the size of Hastings. A new bridge over the Tamaki is opened by the Honourable Mr. Watt to link some of these fast-growing areas. This is only one of a number of bridges costing over £1 million being undertaken around Auckland at the moment. More people are attracting more industry, and more industry is attracting more people in ever-widening circles all over Auckland. Penrose was the most highly industrialised centre in New Zealand, but now about 50 new factories a year are going up, looking for labour wherever there's a concentration of population. From dawn to dusk on the city perimeter, carry-alls thunder through the dust as a great metropolitan motorway system merges from dream to reality. To carry fast traffic into and through a city as big as Auckland's becoming, a vast and audacious motorway plan is necessary. First, the present northwest motorway is being widened and extended. Then, through the red volcanic rock at Penrose, the Great Southern Highway is being pushed on toward the city. Bypassing industrial areas, leaping across subways and bridges, it will carry traffic toward the heart of the metropolis. The Southern Motorway will sweep up over Broadway at Newmarket, go down under Mountain Road. A tunnel will take it beneath Simon Street, and it will come out in the great roundabout in Newton Gully. From here, one branch swings away to join the northwest route, and another curves towards the sea on a tremendous viaduct over Victoria Park, where the foundations are being drilled. Here, this branch will join the approaches to the harbour bridge. When this scheme is completed, traffic may travel at 50 miles an hour in any direction right across the city. This speeding up and development, this building and expansion can be seen throughout New Zealand today. But nowhere is it more arresting than in this tree-green, vigorous city, growing daily more impressive. at New Zealand's northern gateway, Auckland.
The rise of development outside the traditional CBD boundaries not only changed the face of Auckland's landscapes, but it had and continues to have a deep impact on the city's residents. From where they live and work, how they move around the city and interact with the built environment, to the spread of infrastructure and the amount of time residents spend in traffic congestion. Auckland is not alone in this evolution of the urban landscape. In the United States, Houston, Texas is often used as an example of the negative impacts that result from unmitigated urban sprawl. Houston is considered the fattest city in the country, a pejorative used to describe how unhealthy life in the city can be for some residents. This is the result of long commutes, excess traffic congestion, and poor public transportation. But these trends didn't happen overnight. They stem from decades of urban sprawl brought about by lax planning policies and a lack of natural barriers to limit city expansion. Thus, the urbanized area has grown to nearly 4,300 square kilometers. To get a better sense of how spread out the city is, here's a boundary of the Houston metropolitan area overlaid on the London metro area. While Houston may seem only slightly larger than London, note that its metro population is just shy of 7 million people, while the London metro population is over 14 million, or more than twice as dense. Transportation, land use, the environment, and human health are all closely linked. Transportation planning decisions made in the past continue to impact our daily lives. Planning and policy decisions made today will influence where future generations live and work, how they move about the city, and how healthy their lives may be. How we plan for transportation now and in the future is also linked to how much we depend on the personal automobile. As our brief look at the history of urban transportation showed, the more we rely on and own cars, the more we plan around those cars, and the more our land use is spread, necessitating the ownership and use of more cars. To break this cycle, we will need to investigate how we became so focused on one mode and how we can change that focus in the future.